In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to create a framework, something that you can use again and again to create websites, or if you're just using it once, something that's going to give you a solid foundation to move forward. So when you first log into WordPress for the very first time, or when you even visit WordPress for the first time, you're going to see something like this. It may be a little bit different, but this is the front end of the website. And the first thing you're going to need to do is log in. And to log into WordPress for the first time, you have to go to your website /wp-admin, which stands for WordPress-admin. When you do that, and if I just log out to show you here what it looks like, you'll see a screen that looks just like this. It'll redirect you to a screen called WP-login, and you'll need to put in your email address and your password. If you don't know it, you can click lost your password, it will send that to you. But as soon as you've got that, click login, and you'll now see your dashboard. So this is the first thing that you see on a very, very clean WordPress install that has absolutely nothing on it. And you will see along the top there is a top bar, this black top bar. You've got your preview window or your dashboard, and then on the left hand side you have your navigation. Now if I just click or hover over the name of the website and then I click on view site, I'm going to see what is called my back end here and my front end. So this is the customer facing or the user facing, and this is the admin facing or the dashboard or the back end, however you want to look at it. So we're going to be working in two different views. There's the front end and the back end. So what I'm going to do just on the left hand side here is just talk through all of these things. But before I do, let's look at the top bar. So in the left, this is just about WordPress, and you can look at some information if you need to. This allows us to view the front or back end of our site depending. If I am in the back end, it says visit site, and if I am in the front end, it allows me to take quick links to the dashboard, themes, widgets or menus. You'll notice that once you are logged in on the front end, you will also see the top bar. This lets you know that you are logged in, and it's slightly different to the back end. This allows us to see comments, and this allows us to create a new either post, media, page or user, and we'll go through these in a moment. Over in the far right, you can see this is your profile. You can edit your profile or you can log out. And on the front end, slightly different, customize, so we can edit the customizer. These are the same, and so is this. So that is the top bar, and the top bar you can add to the top bar, but overall it is pretty much how it will be throughout our experience of WordPress. What will change, however, is the sidebar on the left hand side. So at the moment, as you can see, we are in dashboard and we are in home. The two options within the dashboard are home and updates. And if I just open those now, you'll see that here there are some dashed lines where we can create widgets. Now in most of the back end of the website, depending on which screen you're on, you'll have the screen options tab over here on the top right. If I click this, it'll drop down and it will let me do different things depending on where I am within the admin settings. So here I can open up all of these different widgets, I can turn them on, and this is giving me some things that I can now drag and drop to reorder to make this dashboard how I want it to be. Now at the moment I don't actually want any of these, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untick them all, keep it nice and clean, because you don't need any of those at the moment. So that's it for our dashboard. For terms of the updates, there are three things that you can update in WordPress, and one of the things to understand in WordPress is that things are constantly updating. And so the first is going to be WordPress itself, the core WordPress files. Every time WordPress updates, you will have the ability to update to the latest version, and that is the WordPress core files. Within the WordPress core files, there are two entities to consider. The first are themes. So for WordPress to work at the moment, for the core version of WordPress to work, we need to install a theme. And a theme is the look and the feel. So the look and the feel of the website, that is down to the theme. And within the theme, we can add what are called plugins. Now plugins is just additional code, and we plug in additional code to the theme. So the theme is the look and feel, and plugins are additional functionality. And as you can see here, themes are up to date, plugins are up to date, and WordPress itself is up to date. If you need, you can click check again just to make sure. But that is all you will need to do. If ever there is an update, you'll get a little a notification on the left hand side to let you know. And something to consider with updates. The very, very first thing before you ever update either core, theme, or plugin, before you update any of those, is you must ensure that you back up your website. If ever there is a problem, and often there is, if ever there is a problem, you want the ability to be able to restore a known working version. And I cannot stress this highly enough. It is very, very important. Even if you have a third-party service that says they will deal with the backups for you, if your developer says they will deal with the backups, if your hosting company says they will deal with the backups, whether you're paying somebody specifically to back your website up, regardless, it is your responsibility to back up your website. You must always ensure that you have a working backup of your website. Your business is too important to ignore or to rely on others to do this, because I've seen it time and time again where the backups failed, or the person didn't have a backup, or couldn't find a backup, or there just wasn't a backup. So you need to make sure that you have a backup of your website. Very, very important. And always ensure you do that before you update. And the second thing to do is, if you are going to update, it is not recommended to update a live website first. The way that WordPress works nowadays is that you would have two instances of your website. You would have a live version of your website and what is called a staging version of your website. And a staging version is just a mirror. It is just a clone, and most hosting providers will allow this, but it is a clone of your website. And so what you do is you take a snapshot, you clone your website, you update the staging server, you check everything, and if it's okay, then you go ahead and you update the live website. It's a little bit more work, takes a little bit more time, but the peace of mind you have from not breaking a live site or panicking or having people have a bad experience through a broken website is worth it for the additional time that it takes to do. It's best practice, and it's what I recommend you start with. I'm trying to give you everything here so you have that solid foundation and you have those good practices to work from. Now, WordPress updates a lot. It is under a GPL license, which is it basically means that WordPress is free to use, and it is updated by volunteers. There is a core team. It is owned by a company called Automatic. A gentleman called Matt Mullenweg, who is the director of Automatic. He's the founder of WordPress, and him and his team, they do work to ensure that it is updated, trying to keep it current, in line with things like Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, ClickFunnels, all of those other page builders that are out there, to try and align with those. WordPress is constantly evolving. Now, one of the things to consider is that WordPress is a lot more complex than all of those platforms. And so there is going to be a learning curve, and there's also going to be an element of things that break more often because you're in control. But as long as you do everything the way that I tell you to do it, you should be absolutely fine. So understanding that you're in control, this is an asset that you own, that it is yours, that you can update it, but you should always be careful when you update and back up first. That's everything I want to cover just in the initial orientation here. Now, just to quickly go through an overview of what this is on the left hand side, WordPress is made up of posts. That is it. That is all that WordPress consists of, is something that is called posts. And you have two variations of posts. You have a post archive, which is an overview of all of the posts, and then you have the individual posts themselves. So an overview of all of the posts is called an archive. So you have the post archive, and the individual post is called the single. So you have the single and the archive. That's the correct terminology within WordPress. That's what it's called. And so when you are looking into different things within WordPress, always consider that these views will always be the same. You will have posts, archives, and single. And so media is just a different variation of posts. And pages is just a different variation of posts. So are comments and everything else that you see, slightly different for appearance, themes. Users, again, is just another variation of posts. Tools is slightly different, and so are settings. Now, the beautiful thing about WordPress, and this is what makes WordPress so attractive, is you can create custom post types. You can create your own post types, and they can be called whatever you want them to be. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to expand WordPress beyond what it was natively created to do. It gives you a lot more flexibility. So one of the things for you to consider are when you're getting started, you have posts and you have pages. Everything else for now we can ignore. Posts are more commonly referred to as blog posts and are things for articles, news updates, blogs, things like that. Anything where you are going to post something and it is relevant, it will be trending, it comes and it goes. It's not a core structural part of your website. And so for that reason, you would normally create that within the post. Pages are more for static, more long-term, anything that's within the menu, anything that is going to be a page like the About page, the Contact page, the Home page, sometimes even a landing page. If you're going to have these additional pages on your website, and a clue is in the name that they're pages, you would normally create those within pages. And this just gives you a little bit of segmentation between anything that's news related or blog or article related and anything that's more static and more core to the site. Media is your media library where you can upload images, music files, videos, PDFs, anything like that. And we'll go through that later. Comments is when anybody is commenting on your website and you have the ability to moderate and also reply and deal with those comments. Appearance is something that will change, and we'll go through that a bit later, but this is where you'll find information relating to your theme. You have the theme, you can customize the theme, you can add what are called widgets to the theme, and we'll talk about those later. You can create menus that people can navigate, and you've got the theme editor, which is a bit like going in to edit the code of the theme. The plugins that we mentioned are plugins that add additional code or additional functionality, and they plug into the theme. And under plugins, we can either look at our installed plugins, add a new plugin, or the plugin editor, which again is kind of like the code editor for plugins. Users, we can view all users, add new, or we can look at our own profile. Tools, there's some basic tools that are available, and then we have settings. So those are all of the things that you'll need to cover within WordPress. And what we're going to do in this video now is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to click on settings. I want us to go ahead and look at the general settings. And the first thing you're going to see here is the site title, what it is that you want your website to be called. Now I might remove Online Mastery from here and I may just call this Framework. And by doing that, what you'll notice is this changes in real time. So as I type it in, you'll see that it adds and changes the name here. This is a site title. It can be picked up in many places. If I go to the front of the website and I view this, we'll see this is called Online Mastery Framework. If I rename it to Framework and I go ahead and I save those changes, I come back and I refresh, it's changed here, it's changed here, it's changed everywhere. So the next thing we need to do after we have our site title is have what is our tagline. So we're a bit modest and we like to think we have the best framework in the world, so our framework is the best framework in the world, and that is going to be our tagline. We then need to consider what is the address of this website. So this will be your domain name. If you have a domain name, which I'm assuming you do, that is what will be here. And this is the WordPress address and the site address, and normally these are going to be the same. If you're using SSL, which I highly recommend and cover that in another video, these will be HTTPS, and then it will just be our website, whatever that will be. And to give you an example, for my main website, this would be onlinemastery.co.uk. And if I was to change that and now update that, when I visit this website, it will redirect me to that page. So it's very important that you understand that if you do mess about or change this, it may possibly lock you out your website if you get it wrong. All of the content that you see here and everything that you see available here, the email address, all of this other stuff, is all information that is stored in a database. So there are two parts to WordPress, and this is very important for you to understand. The two parts to WordPress are the actual files and folders themselves, and the files and folders themselves are actually stored and saved in what is called FTP. It's the server. And so just to give you some sort of context of this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you what that looks like. So where I am in my website, and that's one of the things that I want you to understand, is that there are two ways that you can view your website. The first of which is going to be when I am, for example, going to be wanting to edit some of the files or some of the folders, and you won't do this often, but when you do it, you will probably need what is known as, well, it's going to be known as the FTP, and you'll need to access the FTP. So I'm just going to do that now, and I'm going to open this up so that you can see it. You just need to bear with me a second while I open this. Okay, so here we are. So now we are in, and you can see we are in the WordPress FTP. So here it is. So this is what WordPress looks like as standard. And this is a standard WordPress installation. Now, everything except for these two files never needs to be altered. These can be standard. These are always going to be the same, and whenever WordPress updates, it will update everything that is not highlighted. The WP config that we are using here, and I can go ahead and I can open this. I'm just going to bring over a screen that I use. This is a screen for editing these files, because these are WordPress files, or not just WordPress files, they're website files. They're PHP files, HTML files. There's lots of different types of files, but these are all, you don't need to know too much about these, but just to understand that these are what make a WordPress work. And so this is your WP-config. Now, I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but it connects to the database here. So this is how it connects to the database. We've got the database name, the database user, the database password, where the database is, all of this information. Now, I don't mind sharing this with you because this is only stored on my local machine. It's not a live working website. But this is all information that needs to be secure, and you need to be protected. And this is all of the information, and there's different things that you will set within here, but you normally won't have to touch this. This is normally done on a server level, and they will deal with this for you. But sometimes it may be possible that you or a developer will need to go in and edit things in here, but it must be done very, very carefully. So that is the WP config. So coming back to the overview of all of your files and folders, the only thing that we need to consider apart from that is this one here called WP-content. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this, and what you're going to see are a few things. So I'm just going to delete the ones that don't matter at the moment. Now there are four, as standard, there are going to be 4 folders. This is going to be your upgrade folder, and you can ignore it. You never have to worry about this. Our themes folder is where all of our website themes are stored. Our plugins folder is where all of our website plugins are stored. And our upload folder is where everything from the media library is stored. Now, sometimes other things will be stored in the uploads as well, and there may be other things here, but overall, these are the things that you need to know or worry or be considered. So this is the structure and the layout of the files and the folders. So it's good for you to have an awareness. You don't need to know anything, and I don't want you to go, oh my god, this is overwhelming. The whole purpose of me showing you this is to give you an awareness, so you can say, oh okay, I understand this. You know, there's files and folders pretty much like on your computer. You know, when you open up your computer, you have files and folders, and the structure of WordPress is very similar. Now there is another part to this, and I'm just going to go ahead and open this for you because I think it's good for you to see it again. You don't need to worry about this. This isn't important in terms of you needing to remember anything. But what I do want to show you is the other part. And this, don't worry when you first see it, this is the database. So this is within a WordPress database, and it's not a standard. There's some extra things on here which I'll talk about with you later. But all of these different tables here, if I click on the WP-options table and open this up, the first thing you're going to see are the two things that are here, the site URL and the home page. Now if I come back to my general, the site URL and the home page, these are here, and you can see them here. And you can even see the email address and the things, the blog description. So this was taking WordPress to the next level. That's because I haven't saved this. If I go ahead and I save this, so this is now new, I come back to the database and I refresh this, you can now see this is updated. I can also come into here and I can update this within the database. If I do that and I then come back to here and refresh, you can see it's now changed. And it's really simple when you consider the correlation between this, which is a friendly UI. It's a bit like old school computers when they used to use DOS compared to when we have Windows or we had the Mac environment. This is just a friendly graphical user interface that allows you to easily update content within the database. And it's really important for you to understand this because I'm just going to update this again. Because when you understand this, it's very easy. If you have a problem with your website, it might be that you have to come into here and you have to edit things within the database. Now, you may not want to do this, but you may get somebody qualified to do it for you. Also, if you have to update a lot of things at once, it sometimes is quicker to come in and edit them in bulk in the database rather than editing them within WordPress. So I want you to just have an awareness and an understanding that the theme and the things within WordPress, as in the file structure, are all of the folders, all of these things that you might want to consider. So all of the files and folders here, this is accessed via what is called the FTP, the File Transfer Protocol, which is how you access these files and folders. Okay, and they are stored on your server, and that is one part of your website. The other part is that these files and folders connect to the database, and this is where all of your content resides. Okay, and that is why it is important for you to understand. So, coming away from this now, I just want to follow on from the general settings. Membership allows anybody to register. If you allow anybody to register, it would mean that they can come and create a user on your website. Now, if we come back to the overview here and I go to the WP-login screen, you can see here that the only two options I have are lost your password or back to framework. Now, if I allow anyone to register and I save these changes, if I now come back to this login screen and refresh, you'll now see there is a new option which is register. And if I click in this, it will allow me to register for this site. I can create my own username, my own email address, and it will then add me as a user on this website. And I'll talk to you about different roles and different user levels later on. But good for you to understand and for you to know that sometimes you may want the ability for people to be able to register. A good example of this is when people purchase from you. You may want them, when they purchase, to create an account when they purchase, and they may be known as a customer. When a new user is created, what is their default role? Now, I said I was going to mention this to you. I'm going to quickly go over this now. The very, very top level, which is the level that you will be, is an administrator. You should never, ever give anybody this level of access. This is for you and for you alone. Too many people, when they have a problem with their website, they give administrator access to somebody, and that opens up your entire website. They can copy your website, they can edit your website, they could even lock you out of your own website. There are so many things that people can do when they have administrator access. It's very, very important that if you do need to give somebody specific access, that you create a role for them. And that's quite a complex thing to do, and it's one of the limitations of WordPress from a user-friendly and a simplistic point of view. But for your protection, security is absolutely everything, and the only time we're ever worried about our security is once it's been compromised. And so you need to understand that if you give anybody this access, you need to absolutely make sure you trust them to be able to do that. Editor allows people to edit things. They can edit anything, but they don't have the same admin level. Author allows people to create, and then they can edit the things that they create, but they cannot edit things that other people have created, whereas an editor can edit anything that anyone has created. Contributor is just a level down from author. Subscriber, they can't create anything, they can only view. Customer, if they've purchased from you. Shop manager, somebody who manages the shop. SEO manager, SEO editor. And then we have a group leader here, which is for a plugin which I'll talk about later. So normally customer down to group leader you would not have. You would only have a standard the top 5. But these are the main roles, and you can create new roles and custom roles, and we'll talk about that in another video. But for now, we'll just leave the new default role to subscriber, and we'll allow anyone to register for now. The site language, we can choose that. The time zone, we can choose that. The date format, date, time, and when our week starts. So we're going to go ahead and save those changes. Next, we're going to click on writing, and we're going to look at some things here. So the default post category where things will be posted in a default post is going to be uncategorized. Now we can change this, and we can call it something else if we want, but this is a category, and we'll talk about this later. Format standard, we haven't got any mail server, so we're going to ignore that for now. So that's all we need to worry about for the writing. Click on reading. How many blog pages show at most? 10 posts. Syndication feeds show the most 10 items. For each article, show either a summary or the full text. And do we want to discourage search engines from indexing this website? So if this is ticked, if this box is ticked, Google and other search engines will not index and will not show your website. And that can be important when you're first building the website, because maybe if it's in the building phases, you maybe don't want to show it to people. So I highly recommend you tick this, but when you're ready for your site to go live, make sure you untick it. Okay, going down to discussion, some things that we can click here. This would allow people to post comments on new articles. If you don't want the comments to be available, we can turn those off. And some other things that we can go through there. I tend to just keep this as standard. You don't really need to do too much here. We can just leave that as it is. So some good things to consider there. We've been through, we've looked at most of it. Media, just basic standard media. Permalinks. Now when you start this, it will probably be on plain, which means that to access a page, every single page on your website will have its own number. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and that is going to be the ID. Every post, every page, every single piece of content within your database has an ID number. It's how it's referenced. And so what you could have is this to view the page, but let's be honest, that's not very user friendly. So we normally change it to be the post name. That way the link to a page or a post will be whatever you have called the post or the page. That will be the link will be the post name. So we're going to save that as post name, and that's done. And then we've got some privacy information, privacy policy. We can look at GDPR and things like that a bit later. So those are all of the things to consider for now. There's nothing else that we need to do on here at the moment, so everything else we can leave as it is. And that is all I want to do for this video, going over the basics of WordPress, going over the basic settings, or getting you used to how it all works and everything that's here. I hope that's been useful. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please come back and join me in the next video where we will be talking more about posts, pages, the media library, and all of the other things, including setting up our theme and adding our plugins.